raised my hands higher. Okay, I'll buy you a new one, I swear. His fist connected with my jaw before I could say I was sorry, and the lights went out. I came to on the floor with him, still on his knees, scraping Larry onto a paper towel. He saw me move, and his crying stopped. I'm going to kill you for this. He grabbed the scissors off the counter and came at me. Security tackled him before the scissors reached me. 2 cops dragged him out by both arms while he kept his eyes locked on mine. I swear, Larry will be avenged. They sent him to a psych ward that afternoon. A week later, I still felt bad about it, so I drove to the psych ward with a cockroach in a paper cup. I figured a new Larry would square us up. They walked me to a visitation room with a metal grate down the middle, and my co-worker sat on the other side looking thin. I slid the cup through the slot in the grate. His name is Larry. He stared at me for a long second before his face broke open, and he cupped the roach in both hands like it was made of glass and cried into it. The guard standing behind him caught sight of it. Ah, a roach! He slapped it out of my co-worker's hands and stomped on it. Crunch. My co-worker made the exact same sound he made the day I killed Larry. He came off his chair and tackled the guard to the floor. I didn't move. I'd already started thinking about where to find another cockroach for next week's visit. I didn't know the answer to the last problem on my math final, so I wrote, "The triangle is sad," and put my pencil down. Mrs. Halpern reached my desk to collect tests, picked up my paper, and the entire stack slipped out of her hands. "Oh my God, you might be the next Einstein." She held my paper up to the class. "Everyone, listen, he's going to walk us through how he got this." She turned to me and I blurted, "Because shapes have feelings too," and she pressed her hand to her chest. That kind of abstract thinking is exactly what we test for. She walked to her desk and picked up the phone. "You need to come to room 204 now." 2 minutes later, the gifted coordinator walked in with a clipboard and pulled up a chair to my desk. "When you wrote that the triangle is sad, what did the triangle represent to you?" I said it was a triangle, and she nodded like I'd just split an atom. "And the sadness?" I said it was sad, and she underlined something on her notepad and whispered, "Beautifully circular." I straightened in my chair and decided to break the spell. I made it up. I don't know what a hypotenuse is. I just wanted to be like Dale and have her stop calling on me. She clicked her pen. "You just told me you studied a peer's strategy and copied it. That's exactly the kind of thinking we screen for." She stood up and put her hand on my shoulder. "Your mom's already on her way. The bus to the enrichment campus leaves in 10 minutes. I packed up my bag while the class stared. I passed Dale's desk on the way out. He shook his head and said, "You should have been more wrong." 3 weeks later, I tried "The rectangle has commitment issues" on a pop quiz to get sent back to regular class. Missed straight over from work to open it with me. Hawk dropped into the chair across from me and slid the box over. Open it, open it." I kept my hand flat on the lid and didn't move. "What if they're fake?" He groaned and pushed the box closer. "Bro, the seller's got a blue check, 10,000 followers, and he sent you the receipt." I turned it over in my hands, looking for anything off. He answered way too fast when I asked if they were real. Hawk leaned across the table and rapped his knuckles on the lid. "You screenshotted the whole chat like a maniac. Just open it." That box had $1,500 and 5 months of work in it, and we were finally about to find out if it was real. I pulled the tab, and we both leaned in. The tissue paper inside was the cheap kind, more gray than white. "That's probably just how they package these," Hawk said. I leaned down and smelled fresh glue and new rubber. "Okay, they smell real." I pulled out the first shoe. The insole was peeling up at the heel, and the toe folded flat when I pressed it. Maybe it's one of those removable insoles. There was a letter missing on the heel too, but Hawk shook his head. "Misprints happen. There's no way these are fake." I reached in for the second one and turned it to the light. Where the jump man should have been, a little man was swinging a baseball bat. I held it up between us, and neither of us said a word. I grabbed my phone. "I'm sending him a photo right now." I opened the messages, but the chat was gone. His whole page was gone too. The blue check, the followers, all of it, like the account had never existed. So I pulled up my screenshots and zoomed in on the receipt he'd sent me. "Hawk, look at the store name." It was missing the exact same letter as the heel of the shoe. He'd photographed the fake and handed it to me as proof, and I'd saved it as evidence that he was real. Hawk had cleaned his uncle's shop all winter for his half. I'd bagged groceries every weekend since spring for mine, and all that work was sitting in 2 fake shoes and a screenshot of the man who took it. Marvin dropped out of his chair clutching his throat, and our detention teacher told the rest of us to stay in our seats. Marvin was on the floor kicking and gasping. A few minutes earlier, I was drinking the gross green shake Mom packed me when I saw Marvin trade his apple for Nikita's granola bar. 1 bite later, he was on the ground. Mr. Halpert still hadn't looked up from his laptop. We had to help him, or he was going to die in Saturday detention. Nikita was already out of her seat. "Sir, he's having a reaction. I have my EpiPen in my locker. I'm gonna go grab it." Halpert slammed his hand on the desk so hard the laptop jumped. "Sit down. I doubt his mommy would pack him something he's allergic to." Nikita dropped back into her chair with her eyes still on Marvin. Marvin was wheezing on the floor between us. His face was going red and his eyes were huge. My heart was slamming in my chest. Mr. Halpert, I really think Marvin's dying. Shut it. I've seen you in detention more than in class. One more word, and you're joining me every Saturday for the rest of the semester. He turned back to his laptop and kept typing. Marvin's lips were going blue. I grabbed a napkin from my lunch bag and wrote, "Where's the EpiPen?" I flicked it at Nikita. She wrote back my locker and slid it across the floor past Marvin's elbow. Marvin's eyes locked on mine like he was about to die under a desk in Saturday detention, and my whole body went cold. I grabbed my sports bottle of green shake and stood up. Halpert's head snapped up. "What are you doing?" I squeezed the bottle as hard as I could and emptied half a quart of green sludge straight onto his head. Then I made the loudest puking sound I've ever made and dumped the rest down his shirt. I bolted before he could wipe his eyes. Nikita took off the other way toward the lockers. Halpert decided to chase after me. He came tearing down the hallway, dripping green, screaming about lawyers and getting me kicked out. By lap 2 around the school, I could hear sirens. He stopped chasing me when the ambulance pulled into the parking lot. 2 EMTs were rolling Marvin out on a stretcher with an oxygen mask strapped to his face. Halpert grabbed his own hair. "What happened?" Nikita walked around the stretcher and jabbed her finger at his chest. "You almost killed him. You wouldn't even look up." 2 cops were on him before he could explain. He tried to talk his way out of it, kept stumbling on his words, kept turning his head toward me. When they pulled his arms behind his back, he locked eyes with me one last time. I lifted what was left of my shake, took a long sip. Mom's recipe might be gross, but I guess it sure is helpful. I was walking down the school hallway on my way to make my biggest sale of my life when I heard, "FBI, nobody move." Agents swarmed the hallway with guns drawn and students screamed. One of them slammed me face first into the lockers and twisted my arms behind my back. "Don't you move!" Cold cuffs clicked around my wrists while the whole school stood frozen. My heart dropped when it hit me. They were here for me, and I had no idea why. The principal came running over. "What is going on here?" The lead agent jerked her thumb at me. "We got a tip your student here is the biggest drug dealer in the school." The principal crossed her arms. "I always knew this kid was trouble. I see him sneaking around in that big jacket all the time." The hallway gasped. I twisted against the cuffs and shouted, "That's not what it sounds like. I can explain." She ignored me and kept reading. "Hella customers hitting me up all day, making moves behind the bleachers." Another agent turned a laptop around to security footage of me handing off packages to kids after school. "This is a whole operation," he said, and the principal just shook her head. Another agent grabbed my jacket and ripped it open, and it was packed with little baggies and packages. There it is, the product. Kids backed away from me as they hauled me toward the doors, and I knew if I didn't do something right now, my life was over. I yelled, "Look at my phone. Read the full conversation." I poked my head towards my phone in my back pocket. The lead agent grabbed my phone and scrolled up. Her face changed as she read it out loud. "Got the good stuff. $200 for the usual order. The full pack of hot Cheetos and Coke." The hallway went quiet. She kept going. "Making money moves. Selling the good snacks behind the bleachers." Then she opened a package from my jacket. It was a bag of Takis. Everything inside was chips, candy, and soda. I looked over and saw the other kid who sold snacks, smirking at me, realizing he set me up. The lead agent uncuffed me and whispered, "Can I get 2 bags of Takis?" Me and my dad were moonwalking to Michael Jackson at 3 a.m. when Mom came storming down the stairs in her bathrobe. "What in the world are you two doing still awake?" I covered my mouth to stop myself from laughing. She took one look at the pile of empty energy drinks on the table. "No more!" She pointed a finger at my dad. "You should know better." But as soon as she started going back up the stairs, my dad grinned and shot me a look, and I knew we were going to keep going behind her back. The second her door clicked shut, Dad took long, silent lunges to the fridge and pulled 2 monsters from behind the milk and threw them to me. I cracked them open under the couch so the hiss wouldn't wake up Mom, and Dad immediately turned on Thriller on volume 1 and started doing the dance on the carpet, and I had to bite my arm just so Mom wouldn't hear me laugh. But then we heard the stair creak and he froze midair. We immediately jumped on the couches and closed our eyes, pretending to be asleep. When Mom came down, Dad was fake snoring. She crossed her arms. "Good, at least I know you still listen." She went back up and my dad passed me a Red Bull. He whisper-shouted, "Shotgun!" and we both stabbed a hole into the cans and poured it into our mouths, both of us thinking nothing could go wrong. But when 6:30 a.m. hit and we could hear the birds chirping, I was 10 energy drinks in, and I could feel my heart pounding so hard that it was pulsing in my throat. I looked over to my dad to help, but he slid down the cabinet, clutching his chest. I started researching for solutions because it was obvious we needed help, and I didn't want to tell Mom because I knew she'd be angry. But the Gemini AI overview search result was telling me that it's crucial I call emergency services. I was just about to dial 911 when I heard footsteps on the stairs again. Mom stood there wide awake, pointing at the home camera. "You idiots have been on camera this entire time, and I saw everything, including that poor excuse for a moonwalk." She marched over to my dad, who was still slumped over. "What did you learn from this?" "No more energy drinks." She crossed her arms. "Good." She threw us both water bottles from the fridge. "Drink this. You have to flush it out of your system." I nodded. "Thanks, Mom." She turned Michael Jackson back on. "Don't thank me yet. I haven't shown you how it's done." She moonwalked 10 times better than my dad. Never forget who the real boss is around here. I was waving my baseball cap in the air while my crush jumped to get it when suddenly a group of popular girls started circling us. Danny was still jumping to reach my cap, blushing so hard she didn't even notice them. "Stop! Give it back!" We were both giggling like idiots, and I couldn't wait to surprise her by asking her to prom, until Madison, the leader of the popular girls, stepped forward and pointed at me. "He's bullying her! He's making her jump for it like a dog!" For a second, I was extremely confused, but as I stared at her, I realized what was going on. You see, the last time I saw Madison, she had come by my lockers with a rose and poster. "Will you go to prom with me?" The whole school watched as I rejected her, and now she couldn't stand that I was flirting with the one girl in school that no one else ever noticed. But I wasn't going to let her bully us. I froze and threw both my hands up in the air so quickly that the cap fell to the floor. "What? No, we were just having fun." I was about to walk over, but that's when Madison shoved past me and reached for Danny's arm. "Come here, sweetie. You don't have to tolerate this behavior from him. Come stand with us. We're your friends." Everyone was yelling so loudly that the principal came out and grabbed my arm like he'd already decided I was a criminal. "I don't tolerate harassment. Come to my office. Now. We're calling your parents, and you can explain to them why you're being suspended." I glanced back to look at Danny, who looked like she was going to cry, and I knew if I went over to comfort her, then I'd be expelled instead of suspended. I decided I didn't care anymore. I twisted my arm out of his grip and walked over to her while the whole yard was still yelling. I walked back to where my cap was lying on the floor, picked it up, and set it on her head gently, like it was just us. The note I'd put in the cap earlier fell into her hands. As the principal grabbed my arm again, she read it. "I've been trying to ask you out for weeks. I kept chickening out. Will you go to prom with me?" We locked eyes as she nodded and mouthed, "Yes," and I raised my fist in the air to celebrate to make her laugh one last time before I got expelled. My best friend Mike snapped his diamond-studded glove onto his left hand and hit the MJ toe stand. "Want to see me be a smooth criminal?" He looked over at Jackie scrolling her phone. I laughed. "She's been rejecting you all year, man. This Michael stick won't help." He spun around. "That's because I was too nice, but now I'm bad." He moonwalked over to Jackie, then did the MJ spin and tipped his fedora hat. "Will you be my Billie Jean to prom? I promise if we have a kid, I'll gladly say he is my son." I watched as Jackie started laughing, and Mike put his gloved finger in the air. "And before you say no, watch this." He hit the anti-gravity lean and began shuffling circles around her, his black dance shoes gliding on the hallway floor. Jackie was doubled over laughing as Mike yelled, "Woo!" And I thought, this is it. My friend was about to get the girl he's been crushing on since first grade. But then she shook her head. "I'm sorry, Mike. This is funny, but the answer's still no." My jaw dropped as my friend suddenly stopped shuffling. I would say he, but there's nothing to he about anymore. He put his hands in his pockets and slowly moonwalked back. I put my arm around his shoulder. "You'll get her next time, brr." But he cut me off and took Jackie's phone from his pocket, then her wallet, then finally her car keys. He held them all in his gloved hand. I grabbed my head. "How did you get these?" He chuckled. "I told you I was a smooth criminal. I meant it literally." I asked if he plans on giving it back, and he put everything in his pockets. "Only when she agrees to be my Billie Jean." I faked being sick 100 times to get out of school, and the 101st saved my life. I told Mom I had a stomachache, and she let me stay home. 2 hours later, she walked in from work early and found me on the couch eating chips, 3 episodes deep into a show. She snatched my phone off the cushion and slammed it on the kitchen counter. Grounded, I nodded the way I always did, because she'd yell, I'd nod, and by dinner, she'd forget. She pointed in my face. "One of these days, something is actually going to happen to you, and I'm not going to believe a word of it. Remember that." She started pacing the length of the kitchen, ticking lies off on her fingers. "The dentist appointment last spring." She grabbed the lamp off the side table and pressed it to her own forehead. "You held this to your face to fake a fever." She slammed it back down while I sank deeper into the couch. "The math test in October. You swore you were sick. Then the school called asking why you missed the makeup test." "I was going Friday," I said, but she was already shaking her head. "You were going to skip it." She crossed the room and yanked the chip bag out of my hands, holding it up between us. "And now this. 11 in the morning, already on the couch. You didn't even try this time." She dropped the bag back in my lap, and I shrugged. "Wrong move." She went still, both hands flat on the counter. "I am done. I cannot believe a single word that comes out of your mouth anymore. Not one." The phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up, and the color drained from her face. "What?" She turned the screen toward me, and it was an emergency alert. A car had plowed through a classroom wall during third period. Every injury in room 14. Room 14 was my classroom. If I hadn't faked sick this morning, I'd have been in that seat. Mom slowly sat down on the couch beside me. "So, am I still grounded?" She didn't answer. She just pulled me against her and held the back of my head like she was checking I was still there. I climbed to the top of the homemade ramp on shaking legs, stared down at the school bus, and the whole world tilted sideways. My knees buckled and I had to sit down on the plywood. I pulled off my helmet and read what I'd sharpied inside it after watching Evel Knievel as a 9-year-old. The only thing between me and the other side is air. I said it out loud like a prayer and put the helmet back on. My wife thought I was at Home Depot. 35 was not too old. I dragged myself back down the ramp to my bike. I leaned over the handlebars and stared into the GoPro. What's up, guys? Today we're sending it over 10 buses. I panned the camera to my one bus I'd gotten off Facebook Marketplace for $400. I am the bike. I am the bike. There is no rider. I swung my leg over the bike and started pedaling. A foot from the ramp, my hands slammed the brakes. The bike pitched sideways and dumped me on the asphalt. I picked it up, walked it back to the start, and pointed the GoPro at my own face. I am the bike. 35 was not too old. I started pedaling. I hit the ramp so hard the plywood bounced. I went up. I cleared the front of the bus. I cleared the middle of the bus. I cleared the back of the bus. The GoPro caught my front wheel passing the back bumper, and I let out the biggest scream of my life. I was Evel Knievel. I was Neil Armstrong. I was a general. I was flying. Then my front wheel slammed into flat asphalt. I'd forgotten to build a landing ramp. The bike stopped. I did not. I flew over the handlebars and slid 11 feet on my face. I cleared the bus. The only thing between me and the other side was air, and then asphalt. I was still on the ground when a car pulled into the lot. My wife rolled down the window, shook her head, and said, "Where are the other 9 buses?" Then she drove off. My 12-year-old sister came home with grass in her hair and blood on her elbow for the 3rd time that week. I sat her on the kitchen counter and cleaned the gravel out of her elbow like I had Monday and the day before that. "I fell," she said again. With Dad gone and Mom on doubles, I covered our bills on a warehouse paycheck and patched her up whenever she came home like this. She cleaned stalls at the Miller's farm for $10 a week, so the dirt made sense, but the bruises didn't. She wasn't a kid who fell. I had to find out what was going on. The next day, I left work early and parked by the Miller's fence. She did her chores, then slipped onto the Hartley's land next door. I followed through the trees. She stopped at a back fence. Inside was a huge black horse the Hartleys had tried to tame for 2 years. He'd thrown grown men. She pulled an apple from her pocket, made a soft click, and he walked over like he'd been waiting all day. She climbed the fence and swung onto his back. He didn't move. She tapped his sides and he walked, then trotted. I started forward to drag her home before he killed her. Then I froze. She rode him like she'd done this her whole life, calm and steady on the same horse those grown men couldn't sit on. Then he reared and threw her into the dirt, and I broke into a run. But she got up before I made 3 steps, wiped the blood off her mouth, and walked right back to him. That was where the bruises were coming from. She'd been teaching herself to ride the horse nobody else could touch, and she was a natural. Then the Hartleys came sprinting across the field. I dropped behind a tree. They grabbed her arm, yelling, then stopped. Mr. Hartley repeated the same question. "How did you get him to do that?" That night, I told her I'd followed her. She braced like I was about to scream. I told her she was gifted. She cried. The Hartleys came by that weekend wanting her in a riding competition. They'd cover the entry fee. I had to pay for boots and gear we couldn't afford. That night, I drove to the highway gas station and signed up for overnights. When I got home, I told her I'd gotten a bonus at work. She looked at me for a long time, because I've never been a good liar. She nodded anyway. She's 24 now, with a shelf full of gold medals from horse riding and a house with both our names on the deed. Everyone calls her the Horse Whisperer. She still thanks me for the bonus that bought her first boots, not knowing there was never a bonus, just me working overnight shifts at the gas station so she could ride. My little brother traded away his entire Pokemon binder for 4 cards, and by the end of the week, the kid who took it was handing it back. I came home from my shift and found my 10-year-old brother Charlie sitting on his bedroom floor with 4 shiny cards in front of him. His binder was gone. "Where's all your cards?" I asked. "I traded them," he said, grinning. "Tyrese gave me these. They're ultra rare. He said they're worth thousands." I picked one up. The corners were soft, the print was blurry, and the back was the wrong shade of blue. I'd collected cards myself at his age, so I knew right away these were fakes. Charlie had handed over his Charizard, his full set, everything, for them, and gotten scammed, but I didn't tell him that because I was gonna make it right with my own 2 hands. "Where does Tyrese live?" I asked. 2 streets over." Why?" "Get your shoes on." I looked Tyrese up on Instagram before we left. He had a public account where he posted his trades, and one post stopped me cold. A little kid, maybe 6, was holding up a real holographic Blastoise, and Tyrese's caption underneath said, "Another W, no refunds." There were more like it. He'd pulled this on at least 6 other kids in our neighborhood. I screenshotted every post and drove over with Charlie in the passenger seat. Tyrese answered the door, looked at the 2 of us, and smirked. "He's not getting the binder back. A trade's a trade. Here's what's going to happen." I turned my phone around so he could see the screenshots. I downloaded and saved every post. "I've got your school information and every parent's number from these comments. You just started 9th grade, so either you go get Charlie's binder and everything you took from the other kids, or all of this goes to your principal tonight." His smirk dropped. Behind him, his mom walked up to the door. "What's going on?" I turned my phone around and showed her the posts. "Your son's been scamming little kids out of their cards." 5 minutes later, Tyrese was kneeling in his garage, digging through a shoebox. He picked up Charlie's binder and handed it back, but that wasn't all. There were 6 other stacks in there, each one rubber banded with a kid's name written on a sticky note. His mom made him message every parent to come pick them up. Charlie got his Charizard back and his full set, all of it untouched. On the drive home, he stared at the binder in his lap. "How'd you know what to do?" he asked. "Because I had a binder exactly like yours when I was your age," I said, "and nobody was around to get mine back. He keeps it propped up on a shelf now." I looked up at my garage ceiling, and my face twisted in horror. A wasp nest the size of a basketball was hanging, and I could tell from the giant stingers and massive size that these wasps were murder hornets. I froze in fear, and that's when I saw my little sister throwing her ball in the backyard. She was deathly allergic to bee stings, and these wasps had 10 times more venom. I nervously backed into the house where my uncle was lazily drinking beer. I begged him to help me take the wasp nest down, and he groaned and chugged the rest of his beer. "Come on, kid." He stood up and stumbled towards the garage. I followed him, my legs shaking in fear. When we walked in, my uncle smirked at the huge nest. I've seen bigger before. He reached his hand up to yank it down, but that's when a murder hornet flew straight at his face, buzzing loudly. He stumbled back, swatting at it, and my heart pounded because if one of those things stung anyone, especially my sister, they would kill her. And when I looked into the backyard, I noticed she wasn't there anymore. My eyes widened, and I quickly grabbed my dad's winter coat and told my uncle, "Use this to protect yourself." But he slurred, "It's a wasp, kid, not a bear." I smelled the beer on his breath, and when he grabbed a broom and stumbled towards the nest, I backed away trembling because I realized he wasn't scared of these things at all. The hornets curled their massive stingers, and it felt like they were looking right at us. My uncle raised the broom over his head and smirked with a cocky grin. "Watch how it's done, kid." But right as he went to swing, I heard a voice behind me. "What you doing?" I whipped around and became even more terrified. My sister was in the garage. I said, "Please go back outside," but she just pointed at the buzzing hornet nest. "Wow, what is that cool thing?" She started walking towards the nest that could kill her. I panicked, and my hands shook, and then my uncle's voice came through. "That cool thing is about to be dealt with." He suddenly swung the broom through the air and smacked the nest hard. It broke and fell toward the floor, all the hornets buzzing aggressively while he crossed his arms and just grinned. My knees buckled as I realized what's about to happen, so I scooped my sister off her feet and began sprinting out. The nest hit the concrete, and behind me, a wild, roaring buzz erupted, louder than anything I've ever heard. The hornets started flying in our direction, and my sister screamed in fear. One sting could kill her. That's when something flew past us. My uncle was hauling ass even faster than we were, pale in the face and terrified, not even caring my sister's life was in danger. I was tearing my hair out over my multiple choice homework when my dog tapped his paw on option C. I read it and saw it actually looked correct. I'm cooked anyway, so I may as well just take your advice. I started circling every answer Brownie pointed at. When I was done, I shoved it in my book bag, excited to see what grade I was gonna get. In class, my teacher handed my assignment back with 100 circled and written in red. She crouched down and said, "I knew you had it in you." I was grinning ear to ear. I guess you could say I got that dog in me. She shook her head and sighed, because she didn't know I had a magic dog at home. That night, I slid my homework across the table, and Brownie's paw came down the same way. I hugged him. "Brownie, how are you doing this? Are you a spy?" In response, he walked over to the dog treat cabinet and started wagging his tail, so I threw him some beef jerky. "You're the best doggy ever." I thought nothing could go wrong. So with every assignment the teacher would give me, I got lazier and started coming home to let Brownie do all the work. My parents even got me a PS5 to reward me for working so hard, and I thought life was perfect. But a few months later, the teacher slammed down a quiz on my desk with a fat red F. I grabbed the page and frantically read the answers. Every single answer Brownie had given me was wrong. When I got back home, I shoved it in Brownie's face. "Dude, what happened? I thought you had me." He didn't even blink. He dropped a fortune cookie message from his mouth onto my lap, then put his paw on my hand, like he wanted me to read it. I slowly picked it up. "Lean on another, and you never learn to stand." He was teaching me not to need him. He failed me on purpose. Now when he trots over and lifts his paw toward an answer, I move it off the page and do it myself. Smartest dog I've ever met. I tripped over a rock when running, and while laying on the ground, my best friend punched my shoulder. "Tag, you're it." I balled my fist in frustration because I'd never beaten Ron, but then I noticed the giant oak tree. I got up and wiped the dirt off me. "We're playing again." I jabbed my finger in his chest. 15-minute timer, but this time the loser does the winner's math homework for the year. Ron clutched his stomach laughing. "Have fun with all my long division." He turned around and started counting down from 60. I took off and immediately scaled the giant tree, feeling the sturdy branches. My heart pounded as I watched Ron shrink into a tiny dot below me. I made it to the top and hid behind a thick pile of leaves, and Ron shouted, "60!" He instantly started checking bushes, and behind the trees I normally hid. I was shaking and scared as I was 60 feet in the air. But Ron was faster than me. This was my only chance to avoid doing his math homework. Ron walked underneath the oak tree. He looked up and scanned the branches intently. I held my breath and prayed he wouldn't see me, but eventually Ron shrugged and walked by. I watched him disappear, and a strong gust of wind knocked me off balance. I caught a branch to stop myself from plummeting 60 feet and realized I wasn't safe. I made my way off the tree branch by branch, but then I placed my foot wrong and I slipped on the wet leaves. I couldn't catch myself in time and began falling off. My life flashed before my eyes when suddenly I felt the lowest branch catch me by my pants. I dangled in the air face down, bent over a branch 5 feet from the ground. I was alive, and my face went red as I realized what happened. I tried everything to twist free, but nothing worked. I dangled there with 1 minute left in the game when I heard footsteps. Ron was walking by. This was it. He would see me dangling, tag me, and win. We locked eyes, and Ron just exploded laughing. He dropped to the floor, and tears ran from his eyes. I felt so humiliated, but then my watch beeped. The game was over. Ron had been laughing too hard to tag me on time, and I had won. The next day, he slid my completed math homework back to me across my desk. I smirked, but then I saw the drawing of me dangling from the branch on the page. A young kid walked into my pizza store carrying a PS2, then plugged it into the TV in the top corner and started playing without a word. I asked, "Aren't you gonna buy anything?" But he gripped his controller tighter. "No sir, I have no money. My parents kicked me out and this console is the only thing I own. I came in because it's safer than being on the street." I noticed his ripped shirt and ribs showing, and my heart broke. I immediately heated up the biggest slice on the house, but his face dropped. "I don't want any trouble, sir." I pushed the pizza forward. "I mean it, no catch, and call me Tom." He almost teared up and grabbed the slice, eating like he hadn't in days. "I'm Jackson, by the way." I looked up at the TV screen. I used to be obsessed with that Mortal Kombat game. I've been stuck on the boss battle for weeks. I pulled up a chair and grabbed the controller. "Let me show you. Never use your power up too early." We sat for over an hour, and when the boss finally dropped, Jackson shot up and high-fived me. But then the door aggressively swung open, and a man with red, angry eyes stumbled in. "Jackson, I told you when you get your punk ass out of my house, leave the PlayStation. I told you I'm selling it to pay my dealer back." Alcohol reeked from his breath as he stumbled towards the console. Jackson immediately cowered. "Yes, I'm sorry, Dad, you can take it. You're lucky I'm not whooping you for this, Jackson." The man reached for the console, but I immediately stepped in his way, my arms crossed. "You're not taking that." His eyes went wide and he got in my face. "And who you are, move." He reached past me. Slapped the vending machine. "This thing isn't getting..." The moment I heard Dad snoring, I crept downstairs and took his motorcycle keys. I was 13 and had been binge-watching videos of motorcycles